Alright, so welcome back. We got some stuff to do. We've got a bunch of hoses, but of course I forgot, and well, not necessarily forgot, but I was not paying attention and ordered like this hose that was supposed to be for the upper section, and I ordered the wrong part number, so it has the wrong diameters, but we will just toss that one off into the spare parts and we'll get hose in here. So hopefully before this video up is uploaded here, we'll have the proper hose for the upper part and we can continue on. But for now, let's just start with the lower hose and I will show you the weirdity that I just created with the radiator support. Alright, so check this out with the radiator support. I ran a bar right here from the front bumper up and then over to this section here where it's fastened to that upper bracket that the fan is attached to. And then I put this bar here over top and then slightly bent it and then just welded it in the couple corners and then gave it a good triangulating thing. So essentially, this is not moving anywhere. It is definitely not going anywhere. But if I need to remove it for some reason, I can remove a couple bolts and probably just cut it with the angle grinder to get that piece off, just to get the radiator off. But it's not ideal for a removing radiator, but all in all, it should work. Everything's all fastened together. That's bolted on. So we were good on that. And the hood just barely fits. There's kind of like this notch up on the hood where the hood pin piece used to be, that bar just sits right up in. So I consider that a win and we can move forward. So next on the agenda is I got these hoses that we can modify into something. So the idea is one will go right on the radiator and then it needs to come off at a little bit of an angle. I got two different angles. One's kind of, I don't know, maybe one's a 30 degree and one's a 60 degree or something. Somewhere in there. But that should give us a good couple to choose from. And yeah, we'll pretty much be set. These are just simple Gates hoses that I got off of Amazon. Real cheap. Probably only $7 a piece. I looked into doing like silicone and that just wasn't quite looking good because it's like $20 a bend, and yeah, you add to the fact that silicone can lose water over time, and I'm not really up for that because I am really lazy on doing maintenance. So let's just get cutting these. I'll pretty much just start with coming right down here, right after the bend. Enough room for my coupler piece. And then I've got plenty of other hose here to make up where it goes. So I'll just quickly hack this off, run it over to the bandsaw on the other side, and we'll be in business. Alright, so phase one is here. Kind of just using these worm clamp style things because it doesn't really matter. And they hold pretty decent. So this is our bottom hose. And then we can just chop that up, make it fit. Alright, that should be on. We've got a get a look in here, very small angle to make. So that's not too far apart. So that's pretty much just going to Grab my pencil. Right here at the label. So let's hope it's good. Put it on the slicer and see where we end up. So we just got our other little elbow. Kind of a shame to be paying $10 an elbow, but it's definitely a lot cheaper than silicone. Hey, you never know, maybe one day I will find a direct hose replacement that'll fit right in there. But until then, this will work just fine. That's in. That one's in. I've got a few other little things I can hopefully get shoved in here. We've got some little canisters. So, essentially what we're looking at here, we've got two of these little guys. They are kind of oil catch can canisters or something along the lines of that. That one's kind of scratched up already. They looked better earlier. Anyways, so the idea is we plug these guys in somewhere, maybe over here maybe, because we'll have the hose for the turbo coming down here and angling there. So we'll get these guys here, and essentially what we're going to do is we have, I think we've got two, make sure I don't have any more before I speak. So we've got a hose bar piece here. This is for part of the PCV system, and then there's one more on the other side. And usually how that works is those would be tied together through a PCV valve and then into the vacuum. So then anytime you're sitting at vacuum, you will draw all the kind of funky air through there. Other times you'll have one of these plugged into the air filter box and then the other one to the vacuum. So then it pulls fresh air through the motor, evacuating all the rancid air and then dumping it in there. But with a turbo, you end up with a little more of a complication because you're not always seeing vacuum, you're actually seeing boost. And so that throws things off slightly weird. And when you're under boost, you can have pressure inside the motor itself trying to push out. So instead of being like those guys that you'll occasionally see on like a dyno video where suddenly a bunch of smoke comes pouring out a valve cover breather, what we are going to do is use these two guys. Now what they'll do is we'll tie each one of these to one of these valve cover pieces. So essentially what it'll do is, under standard vacuum, we'll have one of these, maybe let's just call it this one. So we'll tie this one into here and then out from here into vacuum with the PCV valve in between. So then what it will do is when you're idling and under vacuum, it will pull the air. And then this one from that side will go through the other canister and then into the inlet of the turbo. So into whatever filter element we have here. So you can end up under high boost, where the turbo's really hoofing it, if you have your filter element, it may cause a slight restriction where it'll cause a little bit of suction on that hose and pull any, kind of help the pressurized crankcase to evacuate into there. But we don't want to get too much oil into the turbo, so we're using this to help catch a little more. And then when you drop back down into vacuum, this guy will go back to absorbing it. And the weird part is this one's not going to have a PCV, so this will actually draw air through both directions, which in a super proper catch can type of thing, that won't exactly work too well, but this is kind of a super cheap one, so it can flow backwards if it needs to. So that's benefit of the cheap one, and that's the plan, and I plan on sticking with it. So, I guess off camera here, I'm going to make some sort of bracket that perhaps mounts these things here, maybe even utilizing this hard point there, we can just hook these little guys on. And it's got Allen head things there so we can clock it one way or another, so that shouldn't be too bad. Then, the next on our list of stuff would be the coolant catch can. This is just a simple little can, nipple down there. We will probably mount it wherever, maybe over here. We'll probably pull that off. Mount it somewhere over here. So then we run that guy down in there. So that way if it gets overpressure, it can puke into here. And then if it ever needs to bring it back in and cycle through, it can suck it back out, shove it in there. Then there is no overflow for this. So that was something I was looking for, because I don't want to be on like a track and end up with an issue and then have this just dumping coolant all over the place. Drag strips don't like that. So yeah, that's kind of the idea. Apparently they gave us some bright orange hose to try to do that with. That's certainly a fashion statement. Maybe I'll go find some black hose somewhere and re-rig that. Perhaps maybe we'll have enough of this braided stuff left over from the steam vent, which we probably should, and we can run it that way. So yeah, that is the extra plans. So I'm going to get making some mounts here, and we will see what we end up with. All right, well, you know, some things just come into play. Just trying a whole bunch of things all over the place. Found a good spot for these guys right over here. Still got plenty of room for some sort of filtering element or something. I don't know, I haven't really figured that out. But we got that cranked up there, so now we just need to run the hose from there to there. Call that done. We should still have room to run pipe down there for intercooler. That's probably going to be the most difficult. But we are definitely in the ballpark. All right, so I got my hose in. As you can see here, I ran it. You can probably put the hose further this direction on here, but we're right over that first edge, so that's all I really care about. And then we got this guy on there, which allows us to put the steam hose. So that comes from over here, lets any of that hot area from how a lot of the cars have the tilt back of the motor. That way you can, if it gets hot there, it has an air bubble or something, it can purge that through. So that goes into there. We got clamps under there. The coolant reservoir is mounted up right about there. It's got his hose. It should all be good to go. And then we got one hose that comes from that back cylinder valve cover that goes over one of our little catch cans. That is hooked up. Now all that I'll have to do in the meantime is rig up the other hoses, and then we'll pretty much be set. So I'll have to pull this intake off here so that I can finish this back firewall. Once I can finish remodifying that you see all kind of mangled back there, massage it up a little bit, weld it in, and then we'll be able to start putting this all together for the final run. Probably have to see if my oil pressure sensor still fits, hopefully. And that will be that. So we'll get that buttoned up next time, and maybe I'll do that off camera just to save some time. And then we'll get to intercooler piping. That will definitely be an interesting one, and then we can see where everything goes from there. I might end up with a wonderful setup where I have to remove a couple intercooler pipes to put oil in and out, but kind of is what it is. So this is going to be it for today. We pretty much have the coolant system done. That's done and out. There is nothing left. So now we just have to work on PCV, turbo ducting, and then some fuel lines, and then we'll be done. At least with this part of it. Then we can go and move on to buttoning up the other odds and ends, and we'll have an operating car. So we are definitely getting there. All right, so thanks again for joining me. We're getting quite a ways done with this thing. We might be a little bit behind hypothetical schedule because I wanted to get this thing fired up before the end of the year, so we're right on the edge of that. So maybe we'll be running first of the year with it, but we're kind of getting there. Not a whole lot things left, just a lot of money to sink into an ECU system, get that Terminator flying, and we'll be further along than we were earlier. So it's kind of getting cold here, time to head in the house, and next couple days I got a lot to do with the foundation on the house that I have to beat the weather because it's going to get really cold and I can't be doing concrete and that type of stuff and below freezing. That's just no bueno. So thanks again for stopping by, and we'll see you later.